Hello there. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Wherever you are in the world tonight, allow yourself to settle into this shared moment of stillness. Let the noise of the day soften. Let your thoughts grow quiet, like leaves settling gently on a forest floor after an autumn breeze. Imagine wandering through a world untouched by hurry. Forests where ancient trees have stood for thousands of years. Oceans where light dances in depths no human has ever seen. Deserts that bloom in secret colors when the rains finally come. Tonight we journey through the quiet wonders of nature. There is no test waiting at the end. No rush, no urgency. Just the slow unfolding of Earth's most extraordinary secrets to carry you gently towards sleep. We will explore how trees communicate through hidden networks beneath the soil. How creatures glow in the darkest depths of the sea. How rivers can vanish underground and reappear miles away. All of it waiting to be whispered into the stillness. Tonight, let's drift off together while exploring 100 soothing facts about the natural world. There's no rush here, no test at the end. Just soft words and quiet wonders to carry you into rest. Welcome to Drowsy Discovery. I am glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps you have had a long day. Perhaps you simply enjoy falling asleep to thoughts about the remarkable world that surrounds us. Either way, this space is for you. There is something deeply calming about contemplating the wonders of nature. Every forest, every ocean, every mountain carries within it a story millions of years in the making. You are part of that story. The atoms in your body were forged in ancient stars. The water in your cells has cycled through clouds and rivers and oceans countless times. The air you breathe has been exhaled by trees that may have witnessed centuries pass. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. So settle in, let your breathing slow, and let the weight of the day drift away like seeds carried softly on a summer wind. Nature is patient beyond measure. Mountains rise and fall over millions of years. Trees grow for centuries without hurrying. The tides follow rhythms older than any living thing. And yet, within all that slowness, there are sudden bursts of wonder. Flowers that bloom overnight. Lightning that splits the sky. Creatures that glow in absolute darkness. Tonight, we will wander through this magnificent world. We will meet organisms that defy imagination and landscapes that seem painted by dreams. And we will discover truths about nature that may surprise even the most curious minds. But there is no hurry. The Earth has been turning for billions of years. It can wait a little longer while you rest. Let us begin with the hidden life beneath our feet. A single teaspoon of soil can contain more life than there are people on Earth. When you hold a teaspoon of healthy soil in your hand, you are holding a universe of microscopic life. Within that tiny sample live billions of bacteria, millions of fungi, thousands of protozoa, and countless other organisms too small for the human eye to perceive. These numbers dwarf the entire human population of our planet. Each creature plays a role in the endless cycle of decay and renewal that makes soil fertile. Bacteria break down organic matter into nutrients that plants can absorb. Fungi weave their way through soil particles, binding them together and creating channels for air and water. Nematodes hunt bacteria, releasing nutrients in their wake. This hidden world beneath our feet is one of the most complex ecosystems on Earth, yet we walk over it every day without a second thought. The soil is not merely dirt. It is a living organism in its own right, breathing and pulsing with countless lives too small to see but essential to everything that grows above. Beneath the forest floor, fungi form vast networks connecting the roots of trees. If you could peer beneath the forest floor, you would discover something extraordinary. Thin white threads of fungi called mycelium spread through the soil in every direction, wrapping around and penetrating the roots of trees. These threads can extend for miles, creating a vast underground network that scientists have nicknamed the Wood Wide Web. A single fungal network can connect dozens or even hundreds of trees across an entire forest. The fungi are not parasites but partners. They exchange resources with the trees in a relationship that benefits both. The trees provide sugars produced through photosynthesis, while the fungi supply water and minerals that their extensive networks can reach far beyond where any root could grow. This partnership is ancient, dating back over 400 million years to when the first plants colonized land. Without these fungal allies, forests as we know them might never have evolved at all. Trees share nutrients and warnings through these underground fungal highways. The fungal networks beneath forests do more than simply connect trees. They serve as communication and resource-sharing systems that scientists are only beginning to understand. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can send chemical signals through the fungal network to warn its neighbors. The receiving trees then begin producing defensive chemicals before the pests even arrive. Trees can also share nutrients through these connections. A tree growing in a sunny spot may send excess sugars to a neighbor struggling in the shade. Older trees support younger ones, and trees of different species sometimes share resources across the network. The forest, viewed from below, is not a collection of competing individuals, but a cooperative community. The boundaries between separate organisms blur underground, where the roots of many trees are linked by fungal threads into something approaching a single superorganism. Old mother trees can feed their seedlings through hidden root connections. In forests around the world, the oldest and largest trees play a special role that scientists call mother trees. These ancient giants are the most connected nodes in the underground fungal network, linked to hundreds of other trees both near and far. When a mother tree senses a young seedling struggling nearby, she can send nutrients directly to it through the fungal highways. This support can mean the difference between life and death for a seedling growing in the deep shade of the forest floor. Mother trees seem to recognize their own offspring, sending more resources to their genetic relatives than to strangers. Even when a mother tree is dying, she releases a surge of nutrients into the network, passing on her legacy to the next generation. These discoveries have transformed how we understand forests. They are not merely collections of competing trees, but families and communities bound together by ancient partnerships beneath the soil. Some plants communicate through underground networks to warn of danger. The underground communication networks of plants extend beyond trees and forests. In grasslands and gardens, in meadows and fields, plants of many species send chemical signals through their root systems and fungal connections. When a tomato plant is attacked by caterpillars, it releases defense chemicals and also sends signals through the soil. Neighboring tomato plants connected by fungal networks receive these warnings and boost their own defenses in anticipation. Bean plants can signal to their neighbors when aphids arrive. Even plants that share no fungal connections can sometimes detect warning chemicals released into the soil by damaged neighbors. This underground chatter happens in silence, invisible to human eyes, yet it shapes the health and survival of plant communities everywhere. The next time you walk through a garden or a meadow, Remember that beneath your feet, plants are conversing in a chemical language older than any spoken by humans. Some trees can live for thousands of years. In the mountains of California stand trees that were already ancient when the Egyptian pyramids were being built. The bristlecone pines of the White Mountains are among the oldest living organisms on Earth, with individual trees exceeding 5,000 years in age. One tree, named Methuselah, has been alive for nearly 4,900 years, growing slowly in the harsh mountain air, while human civilizations rose and fell far below. These ancient sentinels grow in some of the most inhospitable conditions imaginable, where the very harshness of their environment seems to contribute to their longevity. Cold temperatures, poor soil and limited water slow their growth, but also protect them from disease and fire. Their wood is so dense and resinous that decay cannot easily take hold. These trees are living witnesses to nearly all of recorded human history, their annual rings preserving a record of climate stretching back to the Bronze Age. Certain forests share a single root system beneath the ground. In the mountains of Utah grows a forest that is not quite what it appears. The Pando aspen grove covers over 100 acres and contains more than 40,000 individual tree trunks, yet genetically it is a single organism. Every trunk rises from the same massive root system, making Pando one of the largest and heaviest living things on Earth. The entire organism weighs an estimated 6 million kilograms and may be thousands of years old, though its exact age is difficult to determine. When one trunk dies, the root system simply sends up another. The forest regenerates itself continuously, surviving fires and droughts that would destroy other trees. What appears to be a grove of separate trees is actually one vast interconnected being, each trunk a branch of a single ancient life spreading beneath the mountain soil. Trees release scents to warn others of insect attacks. When caterpillars begin chewing on the leaves of a willow tree, something remarkable happens. The damaged leaves release volatile chemicals into the air, signaling distress to neighboring trees. Nearby willows, even those not yet attacked, detect these chemical messages and respond by producing bitter compounds that make their leaves less palatable to insects. This airborne communication happens within hours, giving unattacked trees time to mount their defenses before the pests arrive. Scientists have documented this phenomenon in willows, maples, poplars, and many other species. The forest is not silent, but filled with chemical conversations we cannot perceive. Trees warn their neighbors of danger, and their neighbors listen and respond. This discovery has changed how we understand forests, revealing a world of cooperation and communication hidden in plain sight. The air in forests acts like a natural medicine for humans. When you walk through a forest, you are breathing in more than oxygen. The trees around you release volatile organic compounds called phytoncides, natural oils that protect them from bacteria and fungi. When humans inhale these compounds, remarkable things happen in our bodies. Studies have shown that spending time in forests lowers blood pressure, reduces stress hormones, and boosts immune function. Natural killer cells, which fight cancer and infections, become more active and numerous after forest exposure. The Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, has been shown to improve mood, reduce anxiety, and enhance feelings of well-being. These benefits persist for days or even weeks after leaving the forest. We evolved among trees, and something in our biology still responds to their presence. The forest is not just a pleasant place to walk, but a pharmacy dispensing medicine through the very air we breathe. Some trees can walk slowly towards sunlight over many years. In the rainforests of Central and South America grows a tree that can relocate itself. The walking palm sends out new stilt roots in the direction of better light, while old roots on the shaded side gradually die and decay. Over months and years, the tree slowly shifts its position across the forest floor, moving toward gaps in the canopy where sunlight penetrates. A walking palm might travel a meter or more over its lifetime, an imperceptible journey that nonetheless allows it to optimize its access to the light it needs to survive. Other scientists debate whether the movement is truly purposeful or simply a byproduct of growth patterns, but either way, the result is the same. These unusual palms have found a way to escape the shade that would kill other trees, walking in slow motion through the forest twilight. Certain trees can survive being completely consumed by fire. In the Australian bush, certain eucalyptus trees have evolved not merely to survive fire but to thrive because of it. Their bark is thick and insulating, protecting the vital growing tissue beneath from even the most intense flames. Deep beneath the bark, dormant buds wait in reserve. After a fire passes, these buds burst into life, covering the blackened trunk with fresh green growth within weeks. The trees have even evolved to encourage fire, producing highly flammable oils and shedding bark that creates fuel on the forest floor. Fire destroys competing plants and releases nutrients into the soil, giving the eucalyptus seedlings a head start when they germinate after the flames. What appears to be destruction is actually renewal. The eucalyptus forests are fire-adapted ecosystems, where burning is not a disaster, but a regular and necessary part of the life cycle. Certain plants can move fast enough to catch prey. The Venus flytrap is a botanical marvel that defies our expectations of what plants can do. When an unsuspecting insect lands on one of its specialized leaves and touches the trigger hairs twice within 20 seconds, the trap snaps shut in less than 1/10 of a second. This is one of the fastest movements in the plant kingdom, achieved without muscles or nerves. The trap closes through a rapid change in water pressure within its cells, a mechanism that scientists still do not fully understand. Once closed, the trap seals itself and secretes digestive enzymes that dissolve the soft parts of the prey over several days. The nutrients extracted from insects supplement what the plant cannot obtain from the poor soils of its native Carolina wetlands. The Venus flytrap counts its prey, remembers past touches, and decides when to snap. It is a plant that behaves almost like an animal. Some plants can taste when they are being eaten. When a caterpillar begins chewing on a cabbage leaf, the plant detects specific chemicals in the insect's saliva and responds accordingly. Different attackers trigger different defensive responses. If a caterpillar is feeding, the plant might produce toxins targeted specifically at caterpillars, while also releasing airborne signals to attract parasitic wasps that prey on caterpillars. If a beetle is the culprit, a different set of defenses is deployed. Plants can even distinguish between mechanical damage, like a falling branch, and damage caused by a living creature. They taste the identity of their attacker through chemical receptors in their cell membranes. This is not simple chemistry, but something approaching perception and decision-making. Plants experience their world in ways we are only beginning to appreciate. Certain plants can count the hours of daylight. Many plants can measure the length of day and night with remarkable precision, using this information to time their flowering perfectly. A plant might require 14 hours of darkness before it will bloom, and even a brief flash of light in the middle of the night can reset its internal clock. This ability, called photoperiodism, allows plants to synchronize their reproduction with the seasons. They count the hours using proteins that accumulate or decay, depending on light conditions. When the ratio reaches a critical threshold, flowering genes are activated. Some plants require short days to flower, while others need long days. Still others are day neutral, flowering based on age or other factors. This internal timekeeping allows plants in the same species to bloom simultaneously across an entire region, ensuring that pollen from one flower can reach another when it is ready to receive it. Some plants can store water for years inside their trunks. The baobab trees of Africa and Madagascar are living reservoirs, capable of storing thousands of liters of water within their swollen trunks. Their spongy wood acts like a giant tank, absorbing water during the rainy season and hoarding it through months or even years of drought. Some baobabs have trunks so large that people have hollowed them out to use as houses, buses, or even prisons. The trees can live for more than 1,000 years, their massive forms dominating the African savanna. Their ability to store water allows them to survive in environments that would kill most other trees. During severe droughts, elephants have been known to tear open baobab trunks to drink the precious water inside. The baobab is a tree shaped by scarcity. Its strange proportions are testament to the creative power of evolution. There are plants that remember past droughts. When certain plants experience drought, they remember the stress and respond differently when water becomes scarce again. Arabidopsis plants that have been drought-stressed once recover faster from a second drought than plants experiencing their first water shortage. The memory seems to involve changes in gene expression that persist even after conditions improve. Some researchers believe plants can pass stress memories to their offspring through epigenetic changes, giving the next generation a head start in coping with difficult conditions. This is not memory in the human sense, but it is a form of learning from experience. Plants that have suffered adapt themselves for future suffering. They carry the imprint of past hardship in their cells, a molecular memory of dry days that prepares them for droughts yet to come. Some seeds can survive for thousands of years before growing. In the permafrost of Siberia, scientists discovered seeds of the Silene stenophylla plant that had been frozen for over 30,000 years. Remarkably, when tissue from these seeds was carefully cultivated in a laboratory, the cells grew into healthy plants that flowered and produced seeds of their own. This makes them the oldest seeds ever successfully regenerated. Other ancient seeds have been found in archaeological sites and dry caves around the world. A date palm seed from the fortress of Masada germinated after 2,000 years. A sacred lotus seed sprouted after spending over a millennium in a dry lakebed in China. Seeds are survival capsules, designed to endure harsh conditions until the moment is right. Some wait for centuries, even millennia, carrying the spark of life through ages of dormancy until water and warmth finally call them forth. There are flowers that bloom only once every few decades. In the mountains of the Andes grows a plant called Puya Raymondii that waits up to 100 years before producing a single spectacular flower spike. This massive inflorescence can reach 12 meters in height, towering over the landscape and producing thousands of individual flowers. The plant puts everything it has into this one reproductive effort, and after the seeds are produced, it dies. This strategy, called semelparity, is a gamble for maximum impact. The century-long wait allows the plant to store enormous reserves of energy, which it releases all at once in a reproductive display so impressive that pollinators cannot ignore it. Other plants follow similar patterns on shorter timescales. The corpse flower of Sumatra may wait 7 to 10 years between blooms, and certain bamboo species flower only once every few decades. All plants of the same species blooming simultaneously across entire continents before dying together. Some flowers change color to attract different pollinators. The lantana flower starts its life-colored yellow, a beacon that shouts to butterflies and bees that nectar is available. After pollination, the flower changes color to orange or red, signaling to pollinators that this particular bloom has already been visited and they should look elsewhere. This color change saves the pollinator time and energy, while ensuring that the plant's pollen is distributed efficiently to unpollinated flowers. Other flowers change color in response to soil pH, time of day, or temperature. The morning glory opens blue in the morning and turns pink as the day progresses. The color shift is not decorative but communicative, a visual language between plants and their pollinators, refined over millions of years of evolution. Flowers are not passive ornaments, but active participants in an ancient conversation with the creatures that serve them. Certain flowers smell like rotting meat to attract flies. The Titan arum of Sumatra is known as the corpse flower for good reason. When it blooms, it releases an overwhelming stench of rotting flesh that can be detected half a mile away. This gruesome perfume attracts carrion flies and beetles that normally feed on dead animals. These insects crawl deep into the flower's structure searching for a meal that does not exist, and in doing so they pick up pollen that they carry to the next corpse flower they visit. The plant heats itself to help spread the odor more effectively, reaching temperatures 10 degrees above the surrounding air. Several plant families have independently evolved this strategy of mimicking death to attract pollinators. The Rafflesia, the Stapelia, and various arums all produce flowers that smell like decay. In nature, even death can be an invitation to life. Some deserts bloom with flowers overnight, after rare rains. In the driest places on Earth, life waits just beneath the surface. When rain finally comes to the Atacama Desert of Chile, sometimes after years of drought, the landscape transforms almost overnight. Dormant seeds that have waited in the soil for decades suddenly germinate, and within weeks, the desert is carpeted with flowers. This phenomenon, called a superbloom, can turn barren gray landscapes into seas of purple, yellow, and white. The flowers race through their life cycle in a matter of weeks, producing seeds before the moisture disappears. Then they return to dormancy, waiting again for rain that might not come for years. Similar superblocks occur in the Mojave Desert, the Namaqualand of South Africa, and other arid regions around the world. The desert holds its color in reserve, releasing it only when conditions allow a brief and glorious celebration of life. Flowers often have ultraviolet patterns, invisible to human eyes. When a bee looks at a flower, it sees something quite different from what we perceive. Many flowers have patterns visible only in ultraviolet light, which bees and other insects can see, but humans cannot. These hidden markings often form bullseye patterns or landing strips that guide pollinators directly to the nectar and pollen. A flower that appears uniformly yellow to us might display dark spots or stripes that light up the path to its reproductive parts for an insect visitor. Some flowers even have nectar guides that change as the flower ages, telling pollinators whether it is worth visiting. This secret visual language has been invisible to humans throughout most of history. Only with ultraviolet photography have we begun to see flowers as their pollinators see them, revealing a hidden dimension of beauty and meaning in the natural world. Some animals can survive being frozen solid. The wood frog of North America has evolved one of the most remarkable survival strategies in the animal kingdom. As winter approaches and temperatures drop, These small frogs allow themselves to freeze solid. Ice crystals form in their blood and tissues. Their hearts stop beating. Their brains cease all activity. To all appearances, they are dead. Yet when spring arrives and temperatures rise, the frogs slowly thaw and return to life, hopping away as if nothing unusual had happened. Their secret lies in special proteins and high concentrations of glucose that protect their cells from ice damage. The glucose acts as a natural antifreeze, preventing the deadly formation of ice crystals inside cells while allowing ice to form safely in the spaces between. Several other animals share this ability, including certain turtles, insects, and other amphibians. Life has found ways to pause itself, to wait out the coldest nights in a state that blurs the line between living and dead. Certain animals can live for months without oxygen. In the ponds and lakes of the northern world, painted turtles have developed an astonishing ability to survive winter trapped beneath the ice. When the water above freezes over, these turtles cannot surface to breathe. They must survive on whatever oxygen is dissolved in the cold water, which becomes increasingly scarce as winter progresses. Some painted turtles can survive for months with almost no oxygen at all. Their metabolism slows to a crawl. Their heart might beat only once every few minutes. They switch to anaerobic respiration, generating energy without oxygen, and tolerating the buildup of lactic acid that would kill most other animals. Some researchers have found turtles surviving conditions that should be lethal for more than 100 days. The turtle's cold, patient endurance is a testament to the flexibility of life, which can adapt to challenges that seem impossible. Some animals can survive for years without food. The tardigrade, also known as the water bear, is among the most indestructible animals on Earth. These microscopic creatures, no larger than a grain of salt, can survive almost anything nature throws at them. When conditions become too dry, too hot, or too cold, tardigrades enter a state called cryptobiosis. They expel almost all the water from their bodies and curl into a tiny ball called a tun. In this state, their metabolism drops to nearly zero. Tardigrades have survived for over 30 years without food or water in laboratory conditions. They have been frozen to temperatures near absolute zero and heated to 150 degrees Celsius. They have survived the vacuum of space and radiation that would kill a human instantly. When water returns, they rehydrate and continue their lives as if nothing happened. The tardigrade has mastered the art of waiting. Certain animals never stop growing throughout their lives. Most animals reach a maximum size and stop growing, but some continue to grow for as long as they live. Lobsters, for example, keep molting and expanding throughout their decades-long lives. The oldest lobsters can reach truly enormous sizes, with claws powerful enough to crush a human hand. Crocodiles similarly continue growing throughout their lives, which can span 70 years or more. Giant tortoises grow slowly but steadily for over a century. Certain fish, including sturgeon and some sharks, never reach a final adult size. This pattern of indeterminate growth means that the oldest individuals of these species are also the largest. An ancient lobster or crocodile represents not just years of survival, but continuous physical expansion. In a sense, these animals never truly finish becoming themselves. Some animals can change their sex to survive. In the warm waters of coral reefs, clownfish live in small groups dominated by a single breeding female. If that female dies, something remarkable happens. The largest male in the group transforms into a female, taking over the breeding role. This sex change is complete and permanent, involving changes to both behavior and reproductive organs. Many fish species can change sex in response to social conditions, ensuring that breeding pairs are always available. Some change from female to male, others from male to female, and a few can change in either direction. This flexibility allows populations to adapt to imbalances and maximize reproductive success. Gender in these animals is not fixed at birth, but responsive to the needs of the community. Life finds ways to ensure that reproduction continues, even when circumstances change. Some animals can regrow entire limbs. The axolotl, a salamander native to the lakes of Mexico, possesses regenerative abilities that border on the miraculous. If an axolotl loses a leg, it simply grows a new one, complete with bones, muscles, nerves, and blood vessels. The regenerated limb is functionally identical to the original. Axolotls can also regenerate portions of their hearts, eyes, and even parts of their brains. Scientists study these remarkable creatures, hoping to understand how such regeneration works, and whether similar abilities might someday be coaxed from human cells. Other animals share lesser versions of this power. Starfish can regrow lost arms. Zebrafish can regenerate heart tissue. Deer regrow their antlers every year. Planarian flatworms can regenerate an entire body from a tiny fragment. The potential for regeneration exists throughout the animal kingdom, though in most species it remains dormant. In the axolotl, that potential is fully realized. Earth's magnetic field helps animals find their way. Many animals possess an invisible sense that humans lack entirely. They can detect Earth's magnetic field and use it as a compass to navigate across vast distances. Sea turtles hatching on Florida beaches carry an internal map that guides them across the Atlantic Ocean and back again, a journey of thousands of miles through featureless water. Salmon returning from the ocean to spawn in the exact stream where they were born use magnetic cues to find their way. Migratory birds adjust their heading based on the magnetic field's strength and direction. Even honeybees and lobsters appear to have magnetic senses. Scientists believe these animals may use tiny crystals of magnetite in their tissues, or perhaps quantum effects in special proteins in their eyes. However it works, magnetoreception allows animals to navigate with a precision that puts human technology to shame. Certain birds navigate using the stars. Before GPS, before compasses, birds were already navigating by the stars. Indigo buntings, small migratory songbirds of North America, learn the pattern of the night sky as fledglings, and use it to orient themselves during their nocturnal migrations. Scientists discovered this by raising buntings in planetariums, where the artificial sky could be rotated. The birds learned to orient based on whatever star pattern they were shown, demonstrating that star navigation is learned, rather than instinctive. Other night-migrating birds also use stellar cues, reading the rotation of the sky to find true north. This celestial navigation is combined with magnetic sensing and other cues to create a multi-layered system of remarkable accuracy. Long before humans looked up and named the constellations, birds were already using them as roadmaps across the darkness. Some birds can fly for months without landing. The common swift is perhaps the most aerial bird on Earth. These remarkable creatures spend almost their entire lives on the wing. Scientists tracking swifts with tiny data loggers discovered that some individuals remain airborne for 10 months at a stretch, eating, sleeping, and even mating in flight. They land only briefly to nest and raise their young, then return to the sky for another marathon of flight. Swifts sleep on the wing by climbing to high altitudes at dusk and entering a state of reduced activity as they glide slowly downward through the night. Their bodies are exquisitely adapted for aerial life, with long curved wings and tiny feet that are nearly useless on the ground. For a swift, the sky is home. The ground is merely a place to visit when absolutely necessary. Certain insects migrate farther than any other animal. The globe skimmer dragonfly holds one of nature's most remarkable migration records. These small insects travel up to 18,000 kilometers across the Indian Ocean, following the monsoon rains from Africa to India and back again. The journey takes multiple generations, with each dragonfly completing just one leg of the round trip before laying eggs that will continue the voyage. Scientists discovered this migration by noticing dragonflies appearing on remote ocean islands where they could not possibly breed. Genetic analysis confirmed that the same population circles the ocean year after year, an unbroken chain of life spanning thousands of miles of open water. The globe skimmer's migration dwarfs even the famous journey of the monarch butterfly, and proves that even the smallest creatures can accomplish extraordinary feats. Certain birds can sleep while flying. When a frigate bird sets out across the Pacific Ocean on a foraging trip that may last weeks, it faces a problem. There is nowhere to land and rest on the open ocean. The solution is astonishing. Frigate birds can sleep while flying, though only in brief snatches. Researchers found that the birds enter sleep for periods of about 12 seconds at a time, often with only one half of their brain sleeping, while the other half remains awake to control flight. They sleep mostly while soaring in rising air currents, where active control is less necessary. Over the course of a night, a frigate bird might accumulate less than an hour of total sleep, far less than it would get on land. Yet somehow this minimal rest is enough to sustain weeks of continuous flight. The frigate bird has learned to steal sleep from the air itself, catching brief moments of rest between wing beats. Some animals use tools to solve problems. For many years, tool use was considered uniquely human, a defining characteristic that separated us from the rest of the animal kingdom. We now know this view was far too narrow. Chimpanzees fashion sticks to fish termites from their mounds. Crows bend wire into hooks to retrieve food from tubes. Sea otters float on their backs and crack shellfish open on stones balanced on their chests. Dolphins wear sponges on their snouts to protect themselves while foraging on the ocean floor. Even some fish use tools. The tuskfish picks up a clam in its mouth and carries it to a rock, then smashes the shell repeatedly until it breaks open. Tool use requires planning, problem solving, and the ability to see an object not for what it is, but for what it could become. These abilities are more widespread in the animal kingdom than we ever imagined. Some animals can recognize themselves in mirrors. When a chimpanzee sees a red mark painted on its forehead, it will reach up and touch the spot, demonstrating that it understands the mirror image is a reflection of itself. This mirror test has become a standard measure of self-awareness in animals, and the list of species that pass it continues to grow. Great apes, elephants, dolphins, and certain corvids have all demonstrated mirror self-recognition. Manta rays show signs of recognizing themselves. Even some fish behave in ways that suggest self-awareness when confronted with their reflections. Self-recognition implies a concept of self, a mental model that separates me from not me. This fundamental cognitive ability was once thought unique to humans, but appears to have evolved independently in several highly intelligent lineages. certain birds can mimic almost any sound. The lyrebird of Australia is perhaps the most accomplished vocal mimic in the natural world. These remarkable birds can reproduce almost any sound they hear with astonishing accuracy. Individual lyrebirds have been recorded imitating chainsaws, camera shutters, car alarms, crying babies, and dozens of other bird species. They incorporate these sounds into elaborate courtship displays designed to impress potential mates. The more complex and varied a male's repertoire, the more attractive he appears. Other birds are also talented mimics. African grey parrots can learn hundreds of words and use them in contextually appropriate ways. Mockingbirds cycle through the songs of many species in their territory. The ability to mimic sounds requires sophisticated neural machinery for learning and reproducing complex patterns. It is a form of intelligence expressed through sound. Certain ants farm their own food in underground gardens. Long before humans invented agriculture, leafcutter ants were farming on a massive scale. These remarkable insects harvest leaves not to eat directly, but to cultivate fungus in underground gardens. Worker ants cut leaf fragments and carry them back to the nest, where smaller workers chew the leaves into a pulp and feed it to the fungus. The ants carefully tend their gardens, weeding out unwanted organisms, and applying antibiotics produced by bacteria they carry on their bodies. The fungus produces nutritious growths that the ants harvest to feed their colony. This symbiotic relationship has evolved over 50 million years, far longer than humans have practiced any form of agriculture. A single leafcutter colony can contain millions of individuals, all working together to maintain gardens that can extend for meters underground. The ants have created a civilization of farmers beneath our feet. Certain fungi can control the minds of insects. In the tropical rainforests of the world lives a fungus that turns ants into zombies. When a carpenter ant inhales spores of the Ophiocordyceps fungus, the spores germinate inside its body and begin to grow. The fungus manipulates the ant's behavior, compelling it to climb to a precise height on a plant stem, clamp its jaws onto the underside of a leaf, and wait to die. This position is ideal for the fungus, which erupts from the ant's head and releases spores that rain down onto the forest floor to infect more ants. The fungus does not merely kill its host but hijacks its nervous system, controlling its movements for the fungus's own reproductive benefit. Different species of Ophiocordyceps have evolved to parasitize different insects, each with its own specific manipulation strategy. The zombie fungus reveals how thin the line can be between parasite and puppeteer. The ocean's deepest point is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. If you could place Mount Everest at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be more than 2 kilometers beneath the ocean's surface. The Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in Earth's oceans, plunges nearly 11 kilometers below sea level. At these depths, the pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at the surface, enough to crush most submarines like tin cans. The water is perpetually dark and near freezing. Yet even here, life exists. When explorers finally reached the bottom in 1960, they found flatfish and shrimp living in the absolute darkness. The deep ocean remains less explored than the surface of the moon. We have mapped more of Mars than we have of our own ocean floors. The abyss holds secrets we are only beginning to discover. Certain fish create their own underwater light shows. In the darkness of the deep ocean, many creatures have evolved the ability to produce their own light. Anglerfish dangle luminous lures to attract prey. Flashlight fish have glowing organs beneath their eyes that they can switch on and off at will. Some squids squirt clouds of bioluminescent ink to confuse predators. The lanternfish, one of the most abundant fish in the ocean, lights up like a constellation as it migrates vertically through the water column each night. Bioluminescence serves many purposes in the deep sea, attracting mates, luring prey, startling predators, and communicating with others of the same species. The dark ocean is not truly dark, but flickering with countless points of cold blue light, a hidden universe of glow. Some creatures can survive in boiling water near deep-sea vents. Where tectonic plates pull apart on the ocean floor, seawater seeps down into the hot rock below and returns as superheated jets that can reach temperatures of over 300 degrees Celsius. The water does not boil only because of the immense pressure at these depths. Around these hydrothermal vents, scientists discovered ecosystems unlike anything else on Earth. Giant tube worms, sometimes 2 meters long, cluster around the vents in thickets, their red plumes waving in the hot current. They have no mouths or digestive systems. Instead, bacteria living inside them convert chemicals from the vent water into food. Crabs, shrimp, and strange pale fish crowd around these oases of heat and nutrients. Life at hydrothermal vents depends not on sunlight, but on the chemical energy pouring from Earth's interior. There are forests of giant kelp growing beneath the ocean. Off the coasts of California and many other temperate shores, underwater forests rise from the ocean floor. Giant kelp, one of the fastest growing organisms on Earth, can grow up to 0.5 meter per day under ideal conditions. Individual plants may reach over 45 meters in length, their fronds floating in great canopies at the surface, while their holdfasts grip rocks far below. These kelp forests support extraordinarily diverse ecosystems. Sea otters wrap themselves in kelp fronds while they sleep, to avoid drifting away. Fish shelter among the swaying stalks. Sea urchins graze on the kelp, and when their populations explode unchecked, they can convert lush forests into barren rock. Kelp forests are vital nurseries and refuges, underwater jungles as complex and productive as any tropical rainforest. There are rivers that flow under the ocean. On the seafloor of the Black Sea, and in several other locations around the world, scientists have discovered something extraordinary. Underwater rivers complete with banks, channels, and even waterfalls. These rivers form when dense, salty water from the surface sinks and flows along the bottom, carving channels in the sediment, just as rivers carve valleys on land. The water in these underwater rivers can be several degrees cooler and significantly saltier than the surrounding seawater, giving it a higher density that keeps it flowing along the bottom. Some of these submarine rivers are quite large, carrying volumes of water comparable to major surface rivers. The ocean floor, far from being a flat and featureless plain, has its own hidden geography of valleys and currents, invisible from above. Some creatures in the deep sea have never seen sunlight in their entire lives. In the deepest parts of the ocean, sunlight is a distant memory. Below about 1,000 meters, no light from the surface penetrates the darkness. Creatures born in these depths may live their entire lives without ever experiencing the warmth or brightness of the sun. They navigate by bioluminescence and the faintest chemical traces. Their eyes may be highly adapted to detect the dimmest glimmers, or they may have lost their eyes entirely, having no need for them in perpetual night. Some deep-sea fish have skin so black it absorbs nearly all light, making them almost invisible even to the glowing lures of predators. These are the true children of darkness, perfectly adapted to a world we can barely imagine. For them, the entire universe is cold, dark, and crushingly deep. There are glowing bays where the water lights up at night. In a handful of magical places around the world, the sea itself seems to catch fire with cold blue light. Bioluminescent bays in Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and the Maldives contain extraordinarily high concentrations of dinoflagellates, tiny organisms that glow when disturbed. When you swim in these waters at night, every movement creates trails of light. Fish leave glowing wakes behind them, paddle a kayak, and the oar strokes paint luminous streaks across the dark water. The effect is ethereal, as if the stars had fallen into the sea. These bays require very specific conditions to flourish: warm water, high nutrients, and protection from pollution. They are fragile ecosystems, easily damaged by development and runoff. To experience them is to witness one of nature's most enchanting performances, a light show written by billions of single-celled organisms. Some mushrooms glow in the dark. In the forests of Brazil, Japan, and many other countries, certain mushrooms emit an eerie greenish glow after nightfall. More than 80 species of fungi are known to be bioluminescent, their caps or stalks shining softly in the darkness. The glow is produced by a chemical reaction similar to that of fireflies, involving a compound called luciferin, reacting with oxygen. Scientists believe the light may serve to attract insects that spread the mushrooms' spores. Some glow only at certain stages of their life cycle. Others glow continuously throughout their existence. To walk through a forest at night and see the ground dotted with glowing fungi is to enter a fairy tale. These luminous organisms remind us that magic is not invented but discovered, hiding in plain sight for those who venture out after dark. Some jellyfish can live forever by reversing their age. The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrii, has developed a strategy for cheating death that seems pulled from science fiction. When injured, stressed, or simply old, this small jellyfish can revert to an earlier stage of its life cycle, transforming back into a polyp and then growing into a new adult jellyfish. This process, called transdifferentiation, allows individual jellyfish to theoretically live forever by continuously resetting their biological clocks. Of course, in practice, most immortal jellyfish are eaten by predators or killed by disease long before they can take advantage of this ability. But the mechanism itself represents a form of biological immortality that has captured the imagination of scientists seeking to understand aging. The secrets of eternal youth may be hiding in a tiny, transparent creature drifting through the world's oceans. Certain animals can see in complete darkness. In caves, deep ocean trenches, and other places of perpetual night, some animals have evolved senses so acute they can perceive their surroundings without any light at all. Many deep-sea fish have enormous eyes relative to their body size, capable of detecting the faintest glimmers of bioluminescence. Other creatures have abandoned vision entirely, developing other senses to compensate. Cavefish navigate by detecting subtle pressure waves in the water. Some snakes can see in infrared, detecting the body heat of their prey. Certain beetles can sense the polarization of light from the Milky Way to orient themselves. The bar-tailed godwit migrates vast distances at night, navigating perhaps by magnetic fields and star patterns. Evolution has invented many ways to perceive a world invisible to human eyes. There are lakes that never freeze, even in the coldest winters. Lake Vostok lies buried beneath nearly 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice, yet it remains liquid despite the frozen continent above. The immense pressure from the overlying ice sheet lowers the freezing point of water, while geothermal heat from below keeps the lake from solidifying. Vostok has been sealed away from the outside world for millions of years, potentially harboring unique life forms that have evolved in complete isolation. Other lakes around the world also resist freezing through various mechanisms. Hot springs maintain volcanic lakes in warm equilibrium. Deep lakes in temperate regions may have bottoms that never freeze because of the peculiar property of water that makes it densest at 4 degrees Celsius. These unfrozen waters offer refuges for life even in the harshest winters, liquid havens in a world of ice. Some lakes change color depending on the season. In the Canadian Rockies, the lakes glow an almost impossible turquoise, their color shifting with the seasons. This extraordinary hue comes from rock flour, tiny particles of sediment ground to powder by glaciers and carried into the lakes by meltwater. In spring and summer, when glacial melt peaks, the lakes take on their most vivid colors. As autumn approaches and meltwater slows, the particles settle and the colors fade. Other lakes change color for different reasons. Spain's Caminito del Rey pools shift from turquoise to emerald depending on algae growth. Crater lakes in volcanic regions can change color based on mineral content and temperature. Some lakes turn pink from salt-loving bacteria. Across the world, lakes paint themselves in colors that change with the turning of the year. Certain lakes are so clear you can see for hundreds of feet. Blue Lake in New Zealand holds the record for the clearest natural fresh water ever measured. Scientists have recorded visibility of up to 80 meters, approaching the theoretical maximum for perfectly pure water. The lake is fed by water that has already been filtered through an underground aquifer, removing particles and nutrients that might cloud it. Other remarkably clear lakes include Crater Lake in Oregon and Lake Baikal in Siberia. In these waters you can see the bottom tens of meters below, every rock and aquatic plant visible as if through glass. The clarity creates an almost disorienting sensation, as if you are floating not in water, but in liquid light. These crystal waters remind us what the world might look like without the constant rain of particles we have become accustomed to ignoring. Certain lakes are so dense it is almost impossible to sink. The Dead Sea, bordering Israel and Jordan, contains water so salty that humans float effortlessly on its surface. With a salinity approaching 34%, nearly 10 times that of the ocean, the Dead Sea's water is so dense that sinking requires deliberate effort. Bathers bob on the surface like corks, reading newspapers or simply floating with their limbs spread. The high salt content makes the water hostile to most life, hence the name Dead Sea, though certain bacteria and algae thrive in its depths. Other hypersaline lakes around the world share similar properties. The Great Salt Lake in Utah, Lake Assal in Djibouti, and the Don Juan Pond in Antarctica are all dense enough to keep swimmers buoyant. These salty waters are remnants of ancient seas or products of evaporation in closed basins where salt has accumulated over millennia. Some rivers disappear underground and reappear miles away. In karst landscapes around the world, rivers play a vanishing act that has puzzled observers for centuries. The water flows along the surface, approaches a cliff or sinkhole, and simply disappears into the earth. Underground, it may flow through vast cave systems carved from limestone over millions of years, traveling for miles before emerging again as a spring or resurgence. The Lot River in France, the Trebiznica in Bosnia, and portions of the Kentucky River all vanish underground for parts of their journeys. Following these subterranean rivers requires specialized cave diving skills, and has claimed many lives over the years. The underground passages connect the surface to hidden worlds beneath, rivers of darkness carrying water through chambers no human has ever seen. There are rivers that boil from geothermal heat. Deep in the Peruvian Amazon lies a river that defies belief. The Shunay Timpishka, known as the Boiling River, reaches temperatures of up to 100 degrees Celsius along parts of its course. The heat comes not from a nearby volcano but from fault lines that allow geothermal energy to rise from deep within the earth. Animals that fall into the water are cooked alive in seconds. Local shamans have known about this river for generations, considering it a sacred place where the spirits of the earth emerge. Scientists only confirmed its existence in recent years, astonished to find such a thermal feature so far from any volcanic activity. The boiling river reminds us that Earth still holds secrets, even in regions we thought we knew. There are rivers hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica. Beneath the vast ice sheets of Antarctica flow rivers that have not seen sunlight in millions of years. These subglacial rivers are fed by water melting from the bottom of the ice due to geothermal heat and pressure. They flow through channels carved in the rock below, occasionally pooling in lakes before continuing their hidden journeys. Scientists have mapped some of these rivers using ice-penetrating radar, tracing networks that stretch for hundreds of kilometers beneath the frozen surface. The water in these rivers eventually reaches the sea, emerging beneath ice shelves and floating away as cold plumes. Antarctica's hidden hydrological system plays a crucial role in the dynamics of the ice sheet, yet much of it remains unexplored and mysterious. Some mountains grow taller every year. The Himalayan mountains, including Mount Everest, are still rising. The collision between the Indian subcontinent and the Eurasian plate that began about 50 million years ago continues to this day, pushing the Himalayas upward by roughly 5 millimeters each year. This may seem insignificant, but over millions of years it accumulates into towering peaks. Erosion constantly wears the mountains down, but the tectonic forces driving them up currently exceed the erosion rate. Other mountain ranges around the world are also growing, including the Alps and portions of the Rocky Mountains. Mountains are not permanent fixtures, but dynamic features in a landscape that is constantly being reshaped by the slow but irresistible movements of Earth's crust. The peaks we see today are merely snapshots in a process that has been ongoing for billions of years. There are caves filled with giant crystals. Deep beneath the Chihuahuan Desert in Mexico lies a chamber that seems to belong to another world. The Cave of Crystals, discovered in the year 2000, contains some of the largest natural crystals ever found. Selenite beams up to 12 meters long and weighing 50 tons fill the cavern, glittering in the light like the interior of some impossible cathedral. These crystals formed over hundreds of thousands of years in water saturated with gypsum, held at exactly the right temperature for growth. The cave is so hot and humid that humans can survive inside for only minutes without protective equipment. Other caves around the world contain remarkable crystal formations, but none approach the scale of this Mexican wonder. The Cave of Crystals is a reminder that beneath the familiar surface of our planet lie wonders beyond imagination. There are caves that breathe with the changing air pressure. In certain cave systems around the world, air flows in and out of entrances, as if the cave itself were breathing. These breathing caves respond to changes in barometric pressure. When pressure outside drops, air rushes out of the cave. When pressure rises, air is drawn in. Some caves breathe so strongly that their breath can be felt from meters away, a cool exhalation on a hot day, or a warm current in winter. Wind Cave in South Dakota was discovered when a passing rancher heard the whistle of air escaping from a small hole in the ground. The breathing reveals the vast volume of passages hidden below, air moving through miles of tunnels as the cave adjusts to the world above. To stand at the entrance of a breathing cave is to feel the pulse of the earth itself. Some rocks are older than the continents themselves. The Jack Hills of Western Australia contain crystals of zircon that have been dated to over 4 billion years old, making them the oldest known materials on Earth. At that time, our planet had only recently formed, and no continents existed in their current configuration. These ancient minerals have survived billions of years of geological upheaval, carried along through the endless recycling of the Earth's crust. By studying the chemistry of these zircons, scientists have learned that liquid water may have existed on Earth's surface far earlier than previously thought. These tiny crystals are time capsules, preserving information about conditions on a world almost unrecognizably different from the one we inhabit today. They are older than any rock, any mountain, any feature we can see with our naked eyes. There are stones that grow over time. In Romania and other parts of the world, peculiar stones called trovants appear to grow like living things. These spherical or irregular rocks increase in size over time, sprouting smaller bulges from their surfaces. The growth is not biological but geological. The stones are made of a sandy core, cemented together by calcium carbonate. When rainwater interacts with the calcium-rich cement, chemical reactions cause the stones to expand, slowly adding layers over centuries. Some trovants have grown to several meters in diameter, their surfaces covered with smaller nodules that give them an almost organic appearance. Local legends attributed life to these growing stones long before science explained their behavior. The trovants remind us that even the inorganic world can exhibit processes that seem almost lifelike. There are places where stones move on their own. In Death Valley, California, heavy stones leave long trails across the dry lakebed of Racetrack Playa, yet no one has ever seen them move. These sailing stones have puzzled observers for decades. Some trails are straight, others curved, still others show sudden turns, as if the stone changed its mind. Scientists now believe the mystery has been solved. On rare winter nights, thin sheets of ice form on the playa surface. When sunlight warms the ice and wind begins to blow, floating ice panels push the stones slowly across the slippery mud beneath. The movement is too slow to observe directly, but the trails left behind record journeys that may take years to complete. The sailing stones demonstrate how nature can create effects that seem inexplicable until the right conditions reveal the mechanism. Some mountains are made entirely of salt. In Iran, enormous domes of pure rock salt rise from the desert floor, some reaching heights of nearly 1,500 meters. These salt mountains, called salt diapirs, form when deeply buried layers of ancient salt become buoyant and rise through overlying rock like slow-motion bubbles. The salt is so pure in some locations that it gleams white against the brown desert landscape. Rainwater carves caves and canyons into the salt, creating otherworldly landscapes that dissolve and reform with every storm. Similar salt formations exist in other parts of the world, though few approach the scale of the Iranian examples. These mountains of salt are remnants of ancient seas that evaporated hundreds of millions of years ago, their concentrated essence rising through the crust to reshape the modern landscape. Some deserts are colder than ice. When most people think of deserts, they imagine scorching heat and endless sand. But by the scientific definition, a desert is simply a region that receives very little precipitation. Antarctica is technically the largest desert on Earth, receiving less moisture annually than the Sahara. The dry valleys of Antarctica are so cold and dry that ice cannot even accumulate there, leaving bare rock exposed to winds that have blown uninterrupted for millions of years. Nothing lives in the harshest of these valleys. They are as close to lifeless as anywhere on Earth. Other cold deserts exist in the high plateaus of Central Asia and the Arctic reaches of Greenland. These frozen wastelands challenge our assumptions about what a desert should be, reminding us that life's absence can take many forms. The Sahara Desert was once green and full of life. Just a few thousand years ago, the Sahara was not the vast sea of sand we know today. Rock paintings in Algeria and Libya depict hippos, crocodiles, and cattle grazing on lush grasslands. Lakes dotted the landscape, and rivers flowed where now there is only sand. This green Sahara, or African humid period, lasted from about 11,000 to 5,000 years ago, when subtle shifts in Earth's orbit brought monsoon rains far north into what is now desert. As the climate changed again, the rains retreated and the desert advanced, sometimes with startling speed. Satellite images have revealed the outlines of ancient lake shores and river channels buried beneath the dunes. The Sahara oscillates between wet and dry phases over tens of thousands of years. The desert we see today is merely a temporary state in a cycle that has repeated many times. There are deserts made of pure white sand. White Sands National Park in New Mexico contains the largest gypsum dune field on Earth. Unlike typical sand dunes made of quartz, these brilliant white dunes are composed of gypsum crystals, weathered from surrounding mountains and deposited by ancient lakes. The gypsum dissolves slightly in rare rains, then recrystallizes into fine grains that the wind shapes into rolling dunes. Animals living here have evolved unusual adaptations. Lizards and mice have become pale, almost ghostly, to blend into the white landscape. The park glows under moonlight, an otherworldly expanse that seems more like snow than sand. White Sands demonstrates how local geology can create landscapes utterly unlike their surroundings, pockets of strangeness amid more familiar terrain. Some deserts have lakes hidden deeper below the sand. Beneath the Sahara Desert lies one of the world's largest aquifers, the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer System. This vast underground reservoir contains water that fell as rain thousands of years ago when the Sahara was green. It extends beneath Egypt, Libya, Sudan, and Chad, holding enough fresh water to fill hundreds of Lake Eries. Other deserts around the world sit atop similar hidden lakes, remnants of wetter times preserved in porous rock. Some of this fossil water is being pumped to the surface for agriculture, but because it is not being replenished, it represents a finite resource. The water beneath the sand is a gift from ancient rains, a legacy of a climate that no longer exists, waiting in the darkness for those who know where to look. Some deserts sing when the wind blows over their dunes. In deserts around the world, sand dunes sometimes produce eerie sounds that have been compared to singing, booming, or the drone of low-flying aircraft. These singing sands occur when dry, uniform grains of sand slide down the face of a dune. The friction creates vibrations that resonate through the dune, producing sounds that can be heard from miles away and felt through the ground. The phenomenon has been reported in the Sahara, the Gobi, Death Valley, and many other sandy regions. Marco Polo described the singing sands of Central Asia, attributing them to spirits. Scientists now understand the physics, but the experience remains magical. Standing in a desert as the dunes begin to hum is to hear the earth itself making music. Lightning strikes Earth millions of times every day. At any given moment, roughly 2,000 thunderstorms are raging somewhere on Earth, producing approximately 100 lightning strikes every second. Over the course of a day, this adds up to over 8 million lightning bolts hitting our planet. Each strike heats the air to temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, creating the brilliant flash we see and the thunder we hear as the superheated air rapidly expands. Lightning can travel at speeds up to 440,000 kilometers per hour and carry currents of up to 300,000 amperes. The energy in a single bolt could power a light bulb for several months. This constant electrical bombardment has been going on for billions of years, playing a crucial role in the chemistry of the early Earth, and perhaps even in the origin of life itself. There are clouds heavier than mountains. A typical cumulus cloud, the fluffy white kind you see on a summer afternoon, can weigh over 500,000 kilograms, the equivalent of about 100 elephants floating in the sky. Large cumulonimbus thunderstorm clouds can weigh millions of tons. The water droplets that make up these clouds are distributed through such a vast volume that the overall density remains lower than the surrounding air, allowing the cloud to float. When conditions change, and those droplets combine into raindrops too heavy to stay suspended, the cloud releases its weight as precipitation. The heaviest clouds, the towering thunderheads that scrape the stratosphere, can contain enough water to fill billions of buckets. They float above us as if weightless, yet their contents would crush anything beneath them if released all at once. Rainbows can appear as full circles from the air. From the ground, we see rainbows as arcs, because the horizon cuts off the lower half. But from an aeroplane or a high mountain, it is possible to see a complete circular rainbow, a ring of color suspended in the mist below. The physics that creates a rainbow works in all directions, bending light from the sun through water droplets and separating it into its component colors. The circle is always there. We simply cannot see the part below the horizon from our usual vantage point. Occasionally, when conditions are perfect, observers have photographed full-circle rainbows from aircraft, glory halos surrounding the shadow of the plane. These celestial rings remind us that what we see depends not just on what exists, but on where we stand to look at it. There are waterfalls that flow upward in strong winds. At certain cliffs and coastlines around the world, waterfalls have been observed flowing backward, their waters blowing upward into the sky rather than falling to the ground. This happens when strong updrafts or horizontal winds catch the falling water and reverse its direction. Videos from Australia, the United Kingdom, and other windy locations show waterfalls that seem to defy gravity, their spray ascending into the clouds. The effect is temporary and requires precisely the right combination of wind speed and waterfall height, but when it occurs, the result is magical. The water seems to forget which way is down, climbing toward the sky in defiance of everything we expect. These reverse waterfalls are reminders that the forces shaping our world are always in motion, sometimes in directions we do not anticipate. There are storms that last for centuries on other planets. Jupiter's Great Red Spot is a storm that has been raging for at least 400 years, and possibly much longer. This anticyclonic tempest is so large that Earth could fit inside it 2 or 3 times over. Wind speeds at its edges exceed 500 kilometers per hour. The storm persists because Jupiter has no solid surface to slow it down, and because the planet's rapid rotation stabilizes large atmospheric features. Saturn has its own long-lived storms, including a bizarre hexagonal pattern at its north pole that has persisted for decades. Neptune's great dark spot comes and goes over years or decades. These extraterrestrial tempests dwarf anything on Earth, making our most powerful hurricanes seem like gentle breezes by comparison. There are storms that produce blue lightning. In the upper reaches of thunderstorms, above the familiar white and yellow lightning we see from the ground, stranger electrical phenomena occur. Blue jets shoot upward from cloud tops at speeds of 100 kilometers per second, reaching heights of 50 kilometers or more. Red sprites dance above storm systems in the mesosphere, lasting only milliseconds. Elves, vast rings of light, flash outward at speeds approaching the speed of light. These upper atmospheric lightning phenomena were long dismissed as pilots' hallucinations until cameras finally captured them in the 1980s. We now know that thunderstorms extend their electrical influence far higher than previously imagined, connecting the clouds to the very edge of space. The sky above a storm is a light show we are only beginning to understand. The tallest waves in the ocean can form without storms. Rogue waves are massive walls of water that can appear seemingly from nowhere in calm or moderately rough seas. These giants can reach heights of 30 meters or more, dwarfing the surrounding waves and striking ships with devastating force. For centuries, sailors, reports of such waves were dismissed as exaggeration or superstition. Then in 1995, a wave measuring nearly 26 meters struck the Draupner oil platform in the North Sea, finally providing scientific proof. Rogue waves form when multiple wave trains constructively interfere, briefly combining their energies into a single towering peak. They can last only minutes before dissipating, making them extraordinarily difficult to predict or study. These freak waves have sunk numerous ships throughout history, monsters of the deep that appear without warning and vanish just as quickly. Coral reefs are built by tiny animals. The vast structures of coral reefs, visible from space and stretching for thousands of kilometers, are built by animals no larger than a pencil eraser. Coral polyps are tiny, soft-bodied creatures related to jellyfish and sea anemones. Each polyp secretes a hard limestone skeleton around its base, and as generations of polyps build upon the skeletons of their ancestors, massive reef structures slowly rise. The Great Barrier Reef, the largest living structure on Earth, has been built by these patient organisms over millions of years. Corals live in partnership with photosynthetic algae that provide them with food, giving the reefs their brilliant colors. When stressed by warming waters, corals expel these algae and turn white in a process called bleaching. The reefs we admire are both ancient monuments and fragile ecosystems, built by creatures we can barely see. Volcanoes can create new islands. In November of 1963, fishermen off the coast of Iceland witnessed something extraordinary. The ocean began to boil, and columns of steam and ash rose from the waves. Over the following months, volcanic eruptions built an entirely new island from the seafloor, eventually named Surtsey after the Norse fire giant. By the time the eruptions ceased in 1967, Surtsey stood over 170 meters above sea level. Scientists have watched the island ever since, studying how life colonizes virgin land. First came bacteria and fungi, then mosses and seabirds that brought seeds in their droppings. Today, Surtsey hosts dozens of plant species and serves as a natural laboratory for studying ecological succession. Islands are born from fire and slowly clothed in life, a process that normally takes millions of years compressed into a human lifetime. Some whales sing songs that travel across entire oceans. The songs of humpback whales are among the most complex and beautiful sounds produced by any animal. Male humpbacks produce elaborate sequences of moans, cries, and howls that can last for hours. These songs are not random but structured, with recognizable themes and phrases that evolve over time. All males in a population sing essentially the same song in any given year, and the song changes gradually as new phrases are introduced and old ones dropped. Whale song can travel for thousands of kilometers through the deep sound channel of the ocean, theoretically allowing whales on opposite sides of an ocean to hear each other. Before the age of motorized shipping, the oceans were full of whale voices, a vast acoustic network of communication that we are only beginning to understand. Certain butterflies can see colors humans cannot. The common morpho butterfly perceives the world through eyes that contain 6 different types of color receptors, compared to our 3. This allows them to see ultraviolet light and distinguish between colors that appear identical to human vision. Some butterflies can see polarized light, using the pattern of polarization in the sky to navigate even on cloudy days. The swallowtail butterfly has been found to possess 15 different types of photoreceptors, giving it one of the most complex color vision systems known. Why would a butterfly need such sophisticated color perception? The answer lies in the flowers they feed from and the mates they seek. Patterns invisible to us are blazingly obvious to a butterfly, a hidden world of color that has been evolving alongside them for millions of years. Some insects can see in ultraviolet light. For many insects, ultraviolet light is just another color in a spectrum we cannot perceive. Bees see flowers in ultraviolet, detecting patterns that guide them to nectar sources. Some flowers that appear uniformly white or yellow to us display intricate bullseye patterns in ultraviolet, pointing directly to the location of the pollen and nectar. Ants use ultraviolet sensitive eyes to navigate by the pattern of polarized light in the sky. Certain moths can see the ultraviolet glow of stars at night. The invisible ultraviolet portion of sunlight illuminates an entire parallel world of signals and patterns that exists alongside our own visible one. We walk through life blind to colors that insects see as clearly as we see red or blue. There are animals that can see Earth's magnetic field. How do migratory birds find their way across thousands of kilometers of featureless ocean or trackless wilderness? Part of the answer may be that they can actually see Earth's magnetic field. Researchers believe that certain birds have specialized proteins in their eyes, called cryptochromes, that are sensitive to magnetic fields. The theory suggests that the magnetic field appears as a visual overlay, perhaps like a shadow or colored tint that shifts depending on the bird's orientation. This magnetic vision would allow birds to see their compass direction superimposed on their view of the world. Similar mechanisms may exist in sea turtles, salmon, and other long-distance migrants. For these animals, the world includes a dimension of perception that humans can only imagine. Some shells grow in perfect mathematical spirals. The chambered nautilus builds its shell in a precise logarithmic spiral, a mathematical curve that maintains the same shape as it grows. Each chamber the nautilus adds is larger than the last, but identical in proportion, creating a pattern that has fascinated mathematicians and artists for centuries. This spiral appears throughout nature, in pine cones, sunflower heads, hurricane systems, and galaxies. The mathematics behind it relates to the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, proportions that humans find inherently pleasing. The nautilus has been building these perfect spirals for over 400 million years, long before humans existed to appreciate their beauty. Nature discovered elegant mathematics on its own, encoding it into the shells of creatures that have no conscious awareness of geometry. There are clouds that glow in the night sky. In the highest reaches of the atmosphere, about 80 kilometers above the surface, clouds of ice crystals can catch the last rays of sunlight long after the ground below has fallen into darkness. These noctilucent clouds, visible only during summer twilights at high latitudes, glow an eerie electric blue against the dark sky. They are among the highest clouds in Earth's atmosphere, forming in a region called the mesosphere, where temperatures can drop below -100 degrees Celsius. Noctilucent clouds have become more frequent and visible in recent decades, possibly due to changes in atmospheric composition related to climate change. They are hauntingly beautiful, visible only in the brief window between sunset and complete darkness, glowing where no clouds should exist. Some rocks can sing when the wind passes over them. In deserts and on mountaintops around the world, certain rock formations produce musical tones when the wind blows past them. These singing rocks are typically thin sheets of stone with particular shapes and compositions that allow them to resonate. The ringing rocks of Pennsylvania chime like bells when struck. The musical pillars of temples in India produce distinct notes. In the deserts of the American Southwest, balanced rocks have been observed to hum in high winds. The phenomenon depends on the precise geometry and mineral content of the rock, creating natural instruments that require no human hand to play. Ancient peoples sometimes revered these singing stones as sacred, believing them to carry messages from the spirit world. The music is real. Only our understanding of its source has changed. There are forests growing on floating islands. In lakes and wetlands around the world, vegetation has colonized floating mats of peat and organic matter, creating miniature ecosystems that drift across the water. These floating islands can support trees, shrubs, and entire communities of plants and animals. In Lake Titicaca, the Uros people have lived for centuries on artificial floating islands made of totora reeds, continuously adding fresh layers as the bottom decays. Natural floating islands form when sections of marsh break loose and drift, carrying their living cargo with them. Some floating islands are large enough to be mapped and given names, appearing and disappearing on different parts of a lake as winds and currents shift them about. These drifting gardens remind us that even the ground beneath our feet need not be fixed in place. Some fish can walk on land. The mudskipper is a fish that has taken the first tentative steps toward a terrestrial life. These remarkable creatures live in the mud flats of mangrove forests, spending much of their time out of the water. They use their strong pectoral fins like arms, pulling themselves across the mud, and even climbing onto rocks and tree roots. Mudskippers can absorb oxygen through their moist skin and the lining of their mouths, allowing them to survive for extended periods on land. They establish territories, fight rivals, and perform elaborate courtship displays, all while perched on the mud under the tropical sun. Watching a mudskipper is like glimpsing the distant past, when the ancestors of all land vertebrates first crawled from the water onto solid ground. Certain fish can leap up waterfalls. Salmon are famous for their ability to leap up waterfalls and rapids on their journey, from the ocean to their spawning grounds. A salmon can launch itself more than 3 meters out of the water, twisting in mid-air to clear obstacles that would stop any other fish. This extraordinary ability is powered by muscles that have been fueled during years of feeding in the rich ocean waters. The fish must time their leaps precisely, finding the right current and angle to carry them up and over the falling water. Not all salmon succeed. Many falls are littered with exhausted fish trying again and again, until they make it or die trying. The salmon's leap is a symbol of determination and the power of instinct driving creatures to complete journeys programmed into their very cells. Certain spiders can sail across the ocean. Small spiders have been found on islands thousands of kilometers from the nearest land, having arrived there by methods that seem impossible for creatures without wings. These spiders practice a behavior called ballooning. They climb to high points, release strands of silk into the wind, and are carried aloft by rising air currents. Once airborne, they can travel for hundreds or even thousands of kilometers, crossing oceans and colonizing new territories. Darwin observed ballooning spiders landing on the Beagle, while it sailed far from any shore. High-altitude sampling has detected spiders floating at elevations of several kilometers. The sky is full of these tiny aerial voyagers, invisible to us below but drifting on the wind like living seeds. There are insects that can walk on water. The water strider, also known as a pond skater, moves across the surface of ponds and streams as if the water was solid ground. Its secret lies in the surface tension of water, a property that creates an elastic-like skin at the interface between water and air. The water strider's legs are covered with thousands of tiny water-repellent hairs that distribute its weight across the surface without breaking through. It can walk, jump, and even skate rapidly across the water in pursuit of prey or to escape predators. Other insects and spiders have evolved similar abilities to exploit this watery membrane. For these creatures, the boundary between water and air is not a barrier but a highway, a two-dimensional world stretched between the liquid below and the air above. Some trees produce hundreds of gallons of sap in a season. The sugar maple trees of northeastern North America are living fountains, pumping hundreds of liters of sweet sap up through their trunks each spring. As temperatures fluctuate between freezing nights and warmer days, pressure changes within the tree force sap upward through the wood. Farmers tap into this flow, collecting the sap and boiling it down to produce maple syrup. It takes approximately 40 liters of sap to produce a single liter of syrup. The sap carries sugars that the tree stored in its roots over the winter, energy reserves being mobilized to fuel the burst of growth that comes with spring. Other trees also produce abundant sap, including birches and walnuts, though none have become as culturally significant as the sugar maple. These flowing trees connect us to ancient traditions of harvesting sweetness from the forest. Certain forests can make their own clouds. The Amazon rainforest releases so much moisture into the atmosphere through transpiration that it creates its own weather. Water evaporating from the leaves of billions of trees rises into the atmosphere, forming clouds that eventually release rain that falls back onto the forest. This self-generating water cycle keeps the forest moist even during times when moisture from the ocean is scarce. Scientists have discovered that the forest releases organic particles that serve as seeds for cloud formation, actively promoting the condensation of water vapor. Without the trees, this cycle would collapse. Deforestation in the Amazon threatens not just the forest itself, but the continental weather patterns that depend on its moisture. The forest breathes, and the sky responds. The Amazon rainforest makes its own rain. About half of the rainfall that falls on the Amazon basin is recycled water, moisture that has already passed through the trees and returned to the atmosphere. This flying river of water vapor is so vast that it carries more water than the Amazon River itself. The forest is not merely responding to rainfall, but actively creating it, pumping groundwater up through roots, out through leaves, and into the sky where it becomes clouds. Some of this moisture travels thousands of kilometers west, crossing the Andes to bring rain to the farmlands of Bolivia and Argentina. The Amazon's influence extends far beyond its borders, connecting distant regions through invisible rivers of air. When we cut down the forest, we are disrupting a water system that spans half a continent. Certain frogs can turn transparent. The glass frogs of Central and South America have evolved one of nature's most remarkable camouflage strategies. Their abdominal skin is almost completely transparent, revealing their internal organs, including the heart, liver, and digestive tract. When a glass frog rests on a leaf, light passes through its body, helping it blend seamlessly with the green foliage. Predators scanning for the telltale outline of a frog often fail to notice these nearly invisible creatures. Recently, scientists discovered that glass frogs can increase their transparency while sleeping by redirecting most of their red blood cells into their liver, making the already clear tissue even more invisible. They have essentially learned to hide in plain sight, becoming living windows through which the forest shows itself. There are animals that can clone themselves. Several animal species have evolved the remarkable ability to reproduce without a partner, creating genetically identical copies of themselves. The marbled crayfish, discovered in the 1990s, is an entirely female species that reproduces through a process called parthenogenesis. Every individual is a clone of its mother. Komodo dragons can reproduce parthenogenetically when no males are available. Some species of whiptail lizards have abandoned males entirely, with all individuals being female and reproducing clonally. Even some sharks and birds have been observed reproducing without fertilization in captivity. Cloning sacrifices genetic diversity for the certainty of reproduction when mates are scarce. It is a survival strategy that trades long-term adaptability for short-term reproductive success. Certain creatures have existed unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. The horseshoe crab has been crawling along the ocean floor for over 450 million years, surviving mass extinctions that wiped out the dinosaurs and countless other species. Its basic body plan has remained largely unchanged since before the first plants colonized land. These living fossils are not truly crabs, but more closely related to spiders and scorpions. Their blue blood contains a compound that reacts to bacterial toxins, making it invaluable for testing the safety of medical equipment and vaccines. Other living fossils include the coelacanth, a fish thought to have been extinct for 65 million years until a living specimen was caught in 1938, and the ginkgo tree, whose distinctive fan-shaped leaves have remained essentially unchanged for 200 million years. Certain mosses can survive in space. When scientists sent samples of moss and other organisms to the International Space Station, they discovered something remarkable. The moss survived exposure to the vacuum of space, cosmic radiation, and extreme temperature fluctuations. After returning to Earth, it recovered and continued growing normally. Tardigrades, those microscopic water bears we met earlier, have also survived the space environment. These findings suggest that life may be more resilient than we imagined, capable of surviving conditions that exist between planets. The possibility of organisms hitching rides on meteorites between worlds, a concept called panspermia, becomes more plausible when we consider the extraordinary survival abilities of these humble creatures. Moss that can survive in space reminds us that the boundaries of life extend far beyond what we once thought possible. Some animals can survive in both boiling and freezing water. The Pompeii worm lives on the walls of hydrothermal vents in the deep ocean, where temperatures can fluctuate from near freezing to over 80 degrees Celsius within centimeters. Its head rests in relatively cool water, while its tail extends into scalding currents, making it one of the most heat-tolerant complex animals known. At the other extreme, the Antarctic icefish has evolved antifreeze proteins in its blood that prevent ice crystals from forming, allowing it to swim in waters cold enough to freeze other fish solid. The same waters that would kill most creatures have become homes for specialists, perfectly adapted to conditions that seem impossible. Life has found ways to colonize the extremes, from boiling vents to frozen seas. Some places on Earth have never been touched by humans. Deep in the world's most remote jungles, on windswept Antarctic nunataks, and in caves sealed for millennia, there remain places where no human has ever set foot. Tepuis, the ancient Table Mountains of Venezuela, have summits so isolated that many contain species found nowhere else on Earth. The deepest cave systems remain unexplored beyond a few kilometers. Submarine canyons and abyssal plains have never been visited. Even with all our technology, vast areas of our planet remain beyond our reach. These untouched places are not empty. They teem with life that has never known human presence. As we explore and map ever more of the Earth, these last wild frontiers grow smaller. But for now, there are still corners of the world where nature exists exactly as it has for millions of years. There are places where it rains fish. In the town of Yoro, Honduras, locals report that fish fall from the sky during heavy rainstorms, a phenomenon they call lluvia de peces. Similar fish rains have been reported in India, Australia, and many other countries throughout history. The most likely explanation involves waterspouts, rotating columns of air that form over water and can suck up small fish and other creatures. When the waterspout moves over land and loses energy, it deposits its living cargo far from any body of water. Other creatures have also fallen from the sky, including frogs, jellyfish, and even spiders. These strange rains are rare but documented, reminders that the boundary between sky and water is not as firm as we might think. Glaciers move like rivers of ice. A glacier may appear motionless, but it is flowing constantly, pulled downward by gravity in a slow-motion river of ice. The fastest glaciers can move several meters per day, while the slowest creep along at only a few centimeters per year. This movement grinds the underlying rock to powder, carves valleys, and transports boulders hundreds of kilometers from their origins. Within a glacier, the ice near the surface is brittle and cracks into crevasses, while the ice below flows like an extremely viscous liquid. Glaciers respond to climate over decades and centuries, advancing during cold periods and retreating when temperatures rise. The great glaciers that cover Greenland and Antarctica contain enough ice to raise sea levels by many meters if they were to melt. These frozen rivers are among the most powerful sculptors of landscapes on Earth. Some birds build structures more complex than human houses. The bowerbird of Australia and New Guinea is an architect without rival in the bird kingdom. Male bowerbirds construct elaborate structures called bowers, not as nests, but purely to attract mates. These constructions can take months to complete, and include carefully arranged collections of colorful objects, such as flowers, shells, berries, and even man-made items like bottle caps and plastic toys. Different species build different styles of bowers, from simple cleared stages to intricate towers and avenues. The male constantly tends and improves his bower, arranging decorations with artistic precision. Females visit multiple bowers before choosing a mate, selecting the male whose structure and display most impresses them. The bowerbird's constructions suggest an aesthetic sense, appreciation of beauty for its own sake, that we usually consider uniquely human. Certain plants can live entirely underwater. While most plants need to expose their leaves to air, some have adapted to spend their entire lives submerged beneath fresh or salt water. Seagrasses form vast underwater meadows that shelter fish, filter water, and store enormous quantities of carbon. In freshwater lakes and rivers, plants like eelgrass and various pondweeds carry out photosynthesis without ever breaking the surface. These aquatic plants have evolved specialized tissues for exchanging gases with water instead of air. Their leaves are often thin and flexible, moving with the currents rather than standing rigid. Underwater forests of kelp and seagrass are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth, rivals to tropical rainforests in their ability to support diverse communities of life. Beneath the water's surface, plant life flourishes in forms most people never see. Certain animals can live entirely in darkness. In the deepest caves, far from any glimmer of light, entire ecosystems have evolved in perpetual darkness. Cave-adapted creatures called troglobites have often lost their eyes entirely over generations of living where vision is useless. Many have also lost pigmentation, appearing ghostly white. In exchange, they have developed enhanced senses of touch, smell, and vibration detection. Cave fish sense pressure waves in the water. Cave spiders feel their way along silk threads. Some of these creatures are found in only one cave system on Earth, isolated populations that have been evolving independently for millions of years. The darkness has not limited them, but freed them to develop in directions impossible in the light above. In the deepest caverns, life persists in forms alien to everything we know from the sunlit world. And now the wonders of nature begin to gently fade behind your thoughts. You have wandered through 100 quiet marvels. From ancient forests where trees whisper through underground networks, to glowing bays where the water shimmers with living light. From deserts that sing to mountains that grow taller each year. You have explored hidden rivers beneath the ice, watched impossible creatures defy the boundaries of life, and glimpsed landscapes that seem painted by dreams. You are part of this story. Not just an observer, but a participant woven into the fabric of the natural world. The atoms in your body have cycled through countless living things before finding their way to you. The air you breathe carries the exhale of ancient forests. The water in your cells has journeyed through clouds and rivers and oceans since the beginning of time. If your eyes feel heavy now, let them close. Let the rhythm of your breath become steady, like the gentle pulse of tides, like the patient turning of seasons. Tonight, as you rest, nature continues its quiet work. Trees are growing. Rivers are flowing. Creatures are glowing in depths no sunlight has ever reached. You are a small, warm presence within this vast living world, peacefully resting among the wonders. Sleep well. Sweet dreams. And may you carry with you the quiet knowledge that you are part of a story that has been unfolding for billions of years, and will continue long after the stars we see tonight have faded. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the natural world. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Drowsy Discovery for more soothing explorations of our remarkable planet. There are more wonders waiting. More secrets hidden in forests and oceans. More mysteries to drift through on quiet evenings. Rest well. And may the gentle rhythms of nature keep you company through the night. This has been Drowsy Discovery. Good night.